Hello, I'm Esther Giduyuat. It's Wednesday, June 8th. This is Africa 54.
The heinous Catholic Church attack in Nigeria is having a major effect on families that have lost loved ones. UNICEF warns of increasing malnutrition among children under 5 living in eastern Uganda. And how young software developers in Zambia are creating applications to address the public's needs.
We begin in Nigeria, where the Catholic Church attack is having a major effect on families that have lost loved ones. David Doyle has more.
On Sunday, Teresa Ogbu took 2 of her 5 sons to celebrate Pentecost at a church in the Nigerian town Owo. Only the boys returned. 13-year-old Victor and his brother escaped after gunmen opened fire during Mass. But Teresa's body was discovered later, lying in a pool of blood in a church aisle. Benedict Ogbu, a farmer, is now a single father of 5.
I miss her seriously. It's just like somebody have 2 hands and they cut one hand. Something that the 2 hand is now carry. You try to use one hand to carry it. In fact, it's very heavy now if I think of it.
The motive behind the attack on the St. Francis Catholic Church is as yet unexplained. The identities of the assailants not revealed. Officials say 22 people were killed and 50 injured. But those figures don't include all the victims, like a husband trying to hold his family together or children left without a mother.
David Doyle of Reuters filed that report. The United Nations is warning that Somalia is at risk of another famine as consecutive droughts have withered crops, killed scores of livestock, and grain imports from Ukraine and Russia have dramatically dropped due to their ongoing war. UN humanitarian coordinator for Somalia, Adam Adelmola, told reporters in a video call from Mogadishu that Somalia is certainly heading toward a famine if action is not taken now.
Somalia is on the brink of a devastating and widespread hunger and mass starvation that could claim hundreds of thousands of lives. Since the beginning of this year, the drought emergency in Somalia has worsened dramatically, and today we are looking at a looming disaster.
Somalia has endured 4 consecutive failed rainy seasons, plunging much of the country into severe drought, prompting the government to declare a state of emergency. Recent moderate rains have not alleviated the crisis. Abdelmullah said if the international community waits until a formal declaration of famine to act, it will be too late. He said nearly half the country's population, about 7.1 million people, are facing crisis-level food insecurity or worse, at least through September. He said 213,000 of them would face famine-like conditions. The situation in the south and central parts of the country is especially grim. The Horn of Africa country has endured 4 consecutive failed rainy seasons, plunging much of the country into severe drought and prompting the government to declare a state of emergency, and recent moderate rains have not alleviated that crisis. The United Nations Children's Fund says there is increasing malnutrition among children under age 5 living in the eastern Ugandan districts of Karamoja, Moroto and Karbong. UNICEF says nearly 23,000 children with severe acute malnutrition in the region require urgent treatment. Reporter Mugume Davids Rwakaringi recently visited Uganda's Karamoja region and has filed this report.
more than 6,000 children aged 6 to 59 months are acutely malnourished, with 10,000 of them severely malnourished. And there are also more than 10,000 pregnant or lactating mothers facing the same problem and need of treatment, according to UNICEF. Food prices here have also more than doubled. For example, a kilogram of maize has shot from 1,000 Uganda shillings to 500 shillings. Martha Gloria Tukey, a midwife and nutrition nurse at Lupa Health Center in Moroto, says unfortunately most of the mothers here start giving birth when they are teenagers.
The woman grows up not well nourished. So because of the lifestyle they are leading here, they eat once a day like that. So a young adolescent needs enough food so that she can in future have a very healthy child. But in Moroto and Rupa, it is a different story. These children don't get enough food as they are growing. So they are at risk of delivering malnourished children. So we've seen them deliver children who are small.
She also faults cultural practices, as women are not allowed to eat any foods until the fall of the umbilical cord, which affects the production of breast milk. Alex Mokori, a nutrition specialist with UNICEF, Uganda, tells VOA that, whereas shortages of food in Karamoja region isn't a new phenomenon, the current levels of malnutrition in the region are unprecedented.
In total, we have over 22,740 children who are severely malnourished and are in need of immediate care. Otherwise, these children are going to be lost to death. We are already recording a number of cases that are dying. For example, here in Kabong, we have seen that in mid-May, a number of children died because of this severe acute malnutrition.
He says such children are also susceptible to diseases such as malaria and diarrhea, which can be fatal. Mokori says these children have to be identified now and be enrolled in therapeutic feeding programs. For VOA News, I am Mugume Davis Rwakarinji in Kampala, Uganda.
Medics say a 5-year-old Sudanese girl was killed after being ran over by security forces in Kalkil neighborhood of Khartoum. The Central Committee of Sudanese doctors say the child was the 101st person and the 16th minor to be killed by security forces since a military coup last October. Military leaders say the killings will be investigated. Protests have flared up in Khartoum since the killing of the 2 protesters in Kalkila in the late May, and the military leader, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, last month lifted the state of emergency imposed since the coup last October. He says it is a trust-building measure. For more insight on Sudan's security situation, I'm joined live via Skype from the United Kingdom by Dr. Sarah Abdel Galil, spokesperson for the Sudanese Professionals Association. Dr. Abdel Galil, welcome back to Africa 54.
Thank you very much for having me in the program.
Yes, Dr. Abdel Galil, we have seen that the military leaders have prosecuted and even charged, taken to court some protesters accused of killing the security forces. But in return, we haven't heard anything about the military or the security forces that have killed protesters, including the girl who was ran over that we just talked about, being taken to court. Do we know if this is going to be happening anytime soon, since al-Burhan has said there's a kind of step, reconciliation sort of, things going on in Khartoum? What do you know?
So the history for al-Burhan and the military council shows always the lack of commitment towards accountability and justice. And that's well known as the 3rd anniversary of the 3rd of June, Khartoum Massacre. We just have been in remembrance of that. And despite the announcement that they lifted the emergency state, as you have mentioned, there is serious security issues, not only in Khartoum, not only central, in other parts and other states, like the runover for the poor 5-year-old child and the killing of a 24-year-old by a bullet to his chest 3 days ago. So the ongoing sort of serious human rights violation and the brutality of the military council that led the coup is very concerning, and we do not trust that there will be any attempt to achieve any justice or accountability.
Do you, as a Sudanese Association of Professionals that are backing the protesters, see a way forward in terms of having maybe face-to-face communications, negotiations with the leaders to be able to put the country back where it's supposed to be?
So the Sudan Professional Association, obviously my colleagues in Sudan, they are not the only one who are pro-democracy and are calling for legitimate call, which is the return of the democratic transition. And very clearly that this is the majority call, as today all of the pro-democracy groups did not attend the dialogue. And the reason for that there should be accountability for the military coup and the supporters who have led the coup and who have been responsible for the human rights violation, and as well who are trying to make sure that the previous regime is back into power. So all of the efforts by the strengthening committee has been returning back to their position. And so this is simply a counter-revolution of the return of the National Congress Party.
Dr. Abdel Galil, will catch up another day. Thank you very much for your insight. Dr. Sarah Abdel Galil is the spokesperson for the Sudanese Professionals Association. In the past month, Ethiopian police have arrested at least 19 journalists and are holding them in detention centers without charge. Human rights groups say the government is intentionally targeting journalists to scare them into self-censorship on the war in the Tigray region and other issues. Halima Thumani spoke to a lawyer who is trying to help those detained in this report from Addis Ababa.
In less than a month, according to the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, the country's federal police force has arrested and detained 19 online journalists. The federal government has accused the 19 of various crimes but has yet to file any official charges. 2 of the journalists are due to appear in court Tuesday. A human rights lawyer working to free the journalists spoke to VOA on condition he remain anonymous because of concerns for his safety. The lawyer says police are making arbitrary arrests of journalists seen as critical of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. He says Abiy's government is sending a message.
Don't speak up. Don't be a voice for the voiceless. And the government will be happy if no one criticizes its activities, duties, and responsibilities.
The Ethiopian media law clearly stipulates that no journalist should be detained because of his or her work. Tamrat Hailu, the deputy chairperson of the Ethiopian Media Council, says that the council has been given little or no information on the journalists and that the arrests are not being conducted properly.
They are not detained in the proper prison. Even some of them, they are not appear in the court. This is the main problem of the Ethiopia media landscape.
Last week, the Federal Police Commission said police were investigating 10 individuals suspected of disseminating content disruptive to the peace and security of the country. Police said they had also identified what they called 111 unlawful internet-based media outlets. These outlets, according to the federal police, broadcast without permission and disseminated content that could incite conflict over ethnic and religious issues. However, Muthoki Mumo, the sub-Saharan African representative of the Committee to Protect Journalists, says the accusations against the arrested journalists are disingenuous.
Some of these journalists, they were moved they were moved from where they were arrested in Bahidar and were taken far away. Their condition remains unclear. And if you look at the journalists arrested, in Addis Ababa, the pattern is the same. Vague allegations, not backed up by evidence, and police repeatedly claiming that they need to investigate and failing to answer questions about which specific offenses.
Many Ethiopian journalists turned down our request to speak on the record in fear of what may happen. One journalist said, "It is not about being brave, it's about the consequences. It is not a good time to speak. And as I speak now, I know it could be me today. They are acting like dogs and are biting." Halima Athmani for VOA News, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
On day 2 of his 6-day visit to the Democratic Republic of Congo, Belgium's King Philippe visited a memorial for combat veterans in Kinshasa and laid a wreath in their honor. He also decorated 100-year-old Corporal Albert Kunyuku, the last surviving Congolese veteran of World War II. Philippe's visit is being billed as an opportunity for reconciliation between the DRC and Belgium, its former colonial ruler. King Philippe also visited DRC's National Museum in Kinshasa, where he handed over a mask the ethnic Suku group used in initiation rites. The ceremonial mask is on unlimited loan from Belgium's Royal Museum for Central Africa. The Belgian government last year set out a roadmap for returning artworks looted during the colonial era, a sensitive topic in Congo. Philippe is delivering a speech to university students in the southern city of Lubumbashi after meeting with President Felix Tshisekedi at the Congolese parliament. Belgium is also preparing to return to Kinshasa a tooth, the last remains of Patrice Lumumba, a hero of the anti-colonial struggle and short-lived first prime minister of the independent Congo. A short time ago, VOA's Yahez Wohib talked to the great-grandson of Patrice Lumumba, Jean-Jacques Lumumba, in Paris.
The king came to reaffirm his regret expressed in 2020 on the colonial past, which has a good thing, but does not call into question the opportunity of restorative justice between the two peoples to heal the wounds of our past. It's a moment of lucidity that reminds us that we must build a common future on a win-win project, and the need of for the Congo to build a serious state, try effective justice, and build a Republican army and fight against corruption. But I cannot speak on behalf of the Lumumba family because not having this quality of the head of family, but I can speak on my own behalf and give my opinion. It's the beginning of another area which should make it possible to render justice to the Congolese people for this inhuman act and to repair all of injustice committed at all levels, because without justice, no lasting peace is possible.
That was VOA's Yahez Wohib speaking with Jean-Jacques Lumumba, the great-grandson of Patrice Lumumba. Still to come, African mobile app developers scramble to release apps aimed at solving their local problems. But first, guest host Vincent Makori tells us what's coming up on Straight Talk Africa.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, tensions between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo are intensifying. The DRC accuses Rwanda of backing the resurgent M23 rebel group active in its volatile east. Rwanda denies this claim. Join me, Vincent Makori, on the next Straight Talk Africa for an in-depth look at this simmering feud.
A key U.S. Senate committee is considering President Joe Biden's pick to head the U.S. Agency for Global Media. Amanda Bennett, a former director of the Voice of America, faced questions about the challenges U.S. international broadcasting faces from changing technologies, threats to journalists, and suppression of a free press worldwide. VOA's congressional correspondent Catherine Gibson has more.
Voice of America.
Amanda Bennett, a former director of the Voice of America, now the White House's nominee to head the 6 entities of U.S. global broadcasting with an annual budget of more than $840 million.
We're at a critical moment in history. Journalism and public diplomacy alike are targeted as never before by authoritarian regimes using mis- and disinformation to undermine those seeking credible, fact-based, and unbiased coverage of the world around them. Journalism has been my life.
A Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, editor, and manager for decades, in addition to her time at VOA, Bennett would be the second Senate-confirmed chief executive officer for the U.S. Agency for Global Media. The first CEO, conservative filmmaker Michael Pack, resigned at the Biden administration's request in 2021 after a controversial tenure marked by concerns about the independence of the agency under his leadership.
How we're going to maintain the reputation of USAGM and restore the sense among people on both sides of the aisle and across the planet that you are not doing anybody's bidding other than the bidding of fair and accurate information and the dissemination of facts across the planet.
I think that my nearly 50-year career in journalism, I have striven to make sure that I always uphold the principles of neutrality, nonpartisanship, unbiased reporting in journalism, and I intend to keep on fulfilling those principles. And those are the principles that USAGM wants at its very heart and soul to maintain. And there's no room for partisanship inside the Voice of America.
But critics have alleged that during Bennett's tenure, morale dropped and VOA coverage of China's handling of the coronavirus was soft. She defended her record reporting on authoritarian regimes and heard from Republicans who encouraged USAGM to combat propaganda worldwide.
At a time when press freedom and democracy are starting to decline, U.S. international broadcasting has a very important role to play. With authoritarian governments shut down the news and censor their people, this agency can give credible and timely and accurate information. There is a need to provide the international community with balanced and objective information. This is especially true in areas of the world where disinformation, propaganda, and terrorist ideology dominate the news.
Bennett's nomination is expected to pass the Democratic-controlled committee in the coming weeks before moving to a floor vote in the full Senate. Catherine Gibson, VOA News, Washington.
It's time for our tech segment, and joining us now is our technology reporter, Paul Ndiho. Hello, Paul.
African mobile app developers are scrambling to release more and more apps, many of which are aimed at solving their local problems. Young software developers in Zambia are creating applications to address challenges in banking, farming, healthcare, and education. For more insight, I spoke to Bright Kunda Mulomba, a self-taught app developer and founder of New Age Developers based in Lusaka, Zambia. Welcome to Africa 54.
It's my pleasure, thank you.
You've been helping young people in primary schools, in secondary schools, to learn about computers, about robotics, about programming. How did you get started?
We started in 2018. We first started as My Career, My Talent, an organization which was focused on fostering and enhancing children's talents and young people, ensuring that they use their talents to be what they want to be. And then we differentiated careers and talents and how they should be able to choose careers that are linked to their talents. Then we due to our financial muscle and other things as we were running, we found out that we couldn't manage to run the actual My Career, My Talent. So we ventured into programming because we are developers. So that's how we started teaching only one department of my career, my talent, which is New Age Developers.
You strike me as somebody who is trying to empower a lot of young people. How many primary schools have you gone to? How many secondary schools have you gone to teach these kids how to be proficient in computer skills?
We've covered about 20 secondary schools and 15 primary schools. Plus, we've an addition of 8 community schools.
Where do you get money to do these programs? When you go to these schools, for example, primary schools, what are you teaching them? What are they eager to learn?
People are mostly eager to learn about software engineering, because I think it's just a trend in here in Zambia of software engineering, most especially web development and mobile application development. So most of our participants are more eager to learn web design and development plus mobile development.
When you talk to some of these students, the pupils that you teach, what are they fascinated about?
When they begin, you find that they don't know anything, but the moment that they print they print the word "hello world" on the screen, they are so excited of it. When they change the screen color to any color that they want, they are so excited. And I myself have been proud of at least three participants this year. They have come to us and they've shown us what they want to build as well, to contribute to the intellectual world of software engineering here in Zambia by producing 3 major systems that I think they are mostly needed in our country today.
Where did you get even the money to start these programs where you are using your own money to teach young kids these skills? Because it takes a lot of money, even buying computers, buying the software that you use to teach these kids. Where are you getting the money from?
We work as software developers. We have worked, and then that's where we usually divide our salaries in 50%. That then the 50 goes to the organization, and the 50 we use it to help ourselves with our living.
You're giving too much for a young person like you, using your resources to do what you're doing. How did this all come about?
My major motivation, I personally, is myself and my background. If it wasn't for well wishers like the Massacre family from the United States, I wouldn't be here today, and I wouldn't be the person that I am today. So that's why the vision is ensuring that everyone has got a basic understanding of programming, information communication technology, despite the race, class, and standards of living that they live. So that's my major motivation and my team's major motivation, plus our lives ourselves. We have gone through a lot, so we want to empower others so that they don't go through what we have gone through ourselves.
How did you learn software development yourself?
On a self-taught basis.
It's very nice. Thank you so much for your time.